As you know, we, along with our co-founder, Dr. David Sinclair, started Tally Health to change the way we age by giving you the science-backed tools and resources that you need to live healthier for longer. So in addition to quarterly epigenetic age tests, our personalized action plans, and our daily longevity supplement Vitality, we're excited to launch member events such as this one, and we're looking forward to having more opportunities to engage with you all as a community. Joining me today is Dr. Trinna Cuellar, who is the Head of Research and Development and VP of Biology at Tally Health. Dr. Cuellar is a molecular biologist by training and has spent over 20 years studying human aging and diseases of aging, such as cancer, neuro and muscle degeneration, and many of those years developing therapeutic drugs and novel technologies for these disorders at companies such as GSK, Genentech, and 858 Therapeutics. Dr. Cuellar has authored numerous papers in prestigious journals on these topics. She received her PhD from the University of California, San Francisco, and her MBA from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Today, we're going to be talking with you about why we age and what we can do about it. After a brief presentation by Dr. Cuellar, we will open the floor up for questions. So please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll look forward to answering those after the presentation. So I know you're all very excited for today's conversation. So without further ado, I will hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Cuellar.
Thank you so much, Melanie. We are really lucky at Tally to have Melanie at the helm here. And I am I'm really thrilled to be here with all of you today to tell you more about my favorite topic, which is why we age and what we can do about it. So let me just share my screen here and get started. Okay. Well, you can see that now. So when it comes to why we age, as you probably know, this is a really complicated problem that me and so many researchers in the world have been slowly chipping away at to really understand on a foundational level what's going on. And I think a really good place to start is our DNA. And when it comes to why we age, it all starts with the DNA, our genetic hardware of our bodies, or as some of you may recall from your high school or college biology classes, it's like the blueprint of life. It contains all of the instructions our cells need for us to grow, develop, reproduce, and survive. And so as you see in this spinning molecule here, the double helix, it's made up of 4 foundational bases that we like to abbreviate as A, C, G, and T. So these letters make up our genes. And we have 20,000 genes in our human genome. And again, these get translated and transcribed and translated into RNA and proteins. And these do all the work in our cells. So we have about 20,000 genes in the human genome, or about 3 billion letters of DNA. To give you a sense of how much DNA this is, if you were to break open the cell and stretch out all the DNA, it would extend beyond Pluto. So it's a lot of DNA. So it kind of begs the question of how do we fit it all into a teeny tiny cell? And not just in the cell, within a tiny compartment within our cells called the nucleus. And the answer is a pretty extreme compaction and packaging program. One layer of that compaction is depicted here in this picture. So you can see the DNA is wrapped around these proteins called histone proteins, much like a string on a yo-yo. And so that's one layer of compaction. There are many others, and ultimately forms this very compact 3D architecture. And so that means that some of the genes are tucked away and they're not active at all. So imagine, if you had a suitcase like mine usually is, I pack at the last minute, and you want to get to something, you have to shift things around. It might not be immediately accessible. And we know that genetic manipulation, so changing the letters of our DNA, can lead to very powerful lifespan extension in animal models. So one of the things that inspired me to go into this field over 20 years ago now was work from Cynthia Kenyon's group. She was at UCSF at the time, where I eventually went on to graduate school. And what they demonstrated was that in these tiny worms that we like to use in the lab, because we can do a lot of fancy genetic tricks with them, if they manipulated their DNA, as well as remove their gonads, their version of testes and ovaries, they could get these little worms that only live for a few weeks to increase their lifespan over 6-fold. So that would be the human equivalent of us living 500 to 600 years. So it just blew me away. I thought, okay, we have the fountain of youth. I'm going to go work on this now and hopefully solve aging, and it was really exciting. And the really cool thing about this is that one of the genes that they manipulated is called DAF2, and that's similar to our insulin receptor or insulin growth factor receptor gene in humans. And we know, you might think, oh, this is a worm phenomenon. It's not. It's been shown that in the Ashkenazi Jewish population, there are variants that have been found in centenarians, so people that can live up to 100 years, and they have variants of this gene. So we know that, at least at the time, we thought that DNA was the answer. And well, there's not a whole lot we can do about our DNA. But a lot has changed in the last 20 years. And we now know that epigenetics plays a huge role. And in fact, only about 10% of aging has been attributed to our genetics. So what is epigenetics? Well, in a basic sense, it's modifications to our DNA and proteins that affect the activity of our genes. And we can influence these epigenetic modifications through lifestyle and environment. And one of the modifications that we study here at Tally Health is called DNA methylation. And the way that works is it's like a little chemical flag on the DNA on CpG sites. So CG sites, so cytosines can become methylated. And it's basically a carbon with 3 hydrogens, a little methyl group. And this basically makes that region of DNA inaccessible. Usually, not always the case, but often it can make that region of DNA inaccessible. It's kind of like being tucked away in the bottom of the suitcase. And we also know that proper DNA methylation is absolutely essential for our cells to function properly, and that this process goes awry as we get older. So DNA methylation becomes dysfunctional. An analogy that Dr. David Sinclair likes to use, and it's an old school analogy, but think about those CDs we used to use in the 80s and 90s. I had them, I don't anymore. But think about DNA as being the music on that CD. And if you have scratches, it becomes hard to read that DNA. And that's what happens with methylation. So if the methylation gets messed up, it becomes harder and harder to access that DNA and read it properly. So what does this have to do with aging? Well, we know that on a population level, the DNA methylation patterns tend to change in pretty predictable ways as we age. So some sites become more methylated, more of these little flags, and some sites become less methylated. And we can analyze someone's DNA methylation profile and predict how old they are based on their DNA methylation. And we do this with fancy machine learning models called epigenetic aging clocks. And it basically, again, quantifies the state of your DNA methylation and outputs what we call tally age or epigenetic age. And this epigenetic age is an indicator of our biological age, which, as you may know, can be quite different from our own chronological age. We're not all aging at the same rate. If you know who Paul Rudd is from Clueless in 1995, there's all these memes. He just doesn't age. He looks exactly the same, almost the same as he did in 1995. So clearly something's going on with him. Or if you've ever been on a hike and you think you're doing well, and then someone that's much older than you passes you, you know what I'm talking about. But the good news is that even if we're not Paul Rudd, there are things we can do. And it has been demonstrated by high quality clinical trials that lifestyle interventions like being on a Mediterranean diet can decrease our epigenetic age. So it's been pretty well established for some time that our genetic software, this DNA methylation, gets pretty messed up as we get older. But the question is why? Why does that happen? And if we know why that happens, maybe we can intervene. So we know that things like ultraviolet light from the sun, carcinogens, chemical agents, these can all cause breaks in our DNA. And a lot of theories have been proposed that maybe these breaks, this damage to our DNA, which even though our cells are pretty good at repairing these breaks, occasionally they make mistakes and we have mutations. So changes in the letter of our DNA, like for example, a C to a T. And this is a pretty reasonable theory that our DNA gets mutated, and that's what leads to aging and disrupted DNA methylation. But there's been another hypothesis put forward that might suggest that there's another primary cause of aging. To tackle this mystery, the Sinclair lab created a special mouse. They engineered this mouse to express a protein. To produce this protein, it's an enzyme. They can break the DNA over and over again. So they had broken DNA, repaired DNA, broken DNA, repaired DNA over and over without introducing mutations. And they found that these breaks alone without the mutations was sufficient to completely erode the epigenome. So if you looked at these mice and you performed the epigenetic age test on them, we could see that their epigenetic age was increased by 50%. And this is fascinating because we know that in the average cell, there's about 10 to 50 breaks per cell, and we have 30 trillion cells. So that means in our bodies, we can expect more than 300 trillion breaks in our DNA every single day. So basically, the repeated stress of DNA damage on the cell was sufficient to age the epigenome, but not just the epigenome. I hope it's pretty obvious here which mouse looks older versus younger. The one on the right developed gray hair faster, kyphosis, so this curvature of the spine, memory loss, was frail and overall less mobile. And so these mice not only age rapidly on an epigenetic level, but on a physical and functional one as well. So what does this mean for why we age? As our genetic software becomes disorderly, cells like this brain cell can lose its identity and can't function properly. This in turn can manifest as age-related decline. And so if aging is caused by loss of information, if the DNA methylome is getting messed up, the question is, can we remove those scratches from the CD so that we can read the DNA properly? Is it possible to restore this information? And the answer is yes. I know that sounds like sci-fi, but it really is happening. We know that it's possible to intervene in the aging process in moderate and in extreme ways. So that brings me to part 2. We can slow down aging, and how do we do it? First of all, I just want to say that there are examples in the animal world of extreme longevity and perhaps even immortality. A few examples are shown here. The tortoise, which can live up to 175 years. Below, you'll see in these Arctic waters, there are Greenland sharks, and these Greenland sharks can live for over 400 years. But my personal favorite is the bowhead whale. I'm a scuba diver. I hope to see one of these someday, but they're social and intelligent mammals just like us. And they're not just models of old age, they're models of healthy aging. They are highly resistant to cancer and other types of pathology. So to me, it's just remarkable. One of the reasons we know is even more remarkable. So there was a bowhead whale born in the 19th century. At some point, had a 19th century harpoon lodged into its shoulder, and then it washed up on an Alaskan shore in the 21st century. So it's pretty wild, but we know that these animals are long-lived, and to me, it's just absolutely fascinating. Even more crazy, as I mentioned, there are animals that are thought to be immortal, although we'd have to follow them forever to be absolutely sure. All evidence to date suggests that they are immortal. And one of those is literally called the immortal jellyfish. It starts off as a baby polyp, grows up into an adult medusa, and then just like Benjamin Button, can revert back to its baby polyp state. I don't know about you, I don't want to become a baby again. I don't want to go through the teenage years again, but I'd like to go back to maybe my 30s or 20s and, repair the cartilage in my knees. I think that would be really fun. There are also 2 other examples like the planarian and hydra, which have large proportions of stem cells, which are so important for regeneration. And we find that in the planarian, it's pretty wild. I don't recommend you try this at home, but if you were to chop off its head, it can actually regrow its head and reconnect all that neuronal circuitry back to its body. So again, there are examples of extreme longevity in nature, and aging might not even be a ubiquitous feature across the animal kingdom. So it's pretty exciting. So what about us? We do age, we don't live as long. Is it possible to intervene? And in 2012, Dr. Shinya Yamanaka won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for his discovery that you could take a fully differentiated cell and reprogram it using a technique called cellular reprogramming back into a stem cell, and then differentiate it into something else. Think, what if we took one of our skin cells, reprogrammed it, and now it can become a heart cell or cartilage cells? It's really quite remarkable. And because, again, stem cells underlie tissue repair and regeneration, we know that this holds considerable promise as an intervention in aging. What about reprogramming in those mice I told you about, where they were aged by all those DNA breaks? Well, they applied cellular reprogramming to these mice, and they were able to reduce epigenetic age by 57%. This is really cool. This suggests that we keep a backup copy of our software, that we can actually potentially remove those scratches on top of that CD so that we can read the DNA again. There's another really remarkable example of cellular reprogramming that I saw recently, where they damaged the optic nerve of primates with lasers. And normally the optic nerve does not regenerate, but with cellular reprogramming, they were able to restore vision in primates. So again, I know it sounds like sci-fi, but this is really what's happening in labs today in preclinical studies. And while I want to caution that we don't have extreme therapeutics in humans yet, This is a super exciting time to be in this field, and I'm very optimistic that some of these therapies will be out there in the world at some point. But until more futuristic technologies emerge, what can we do in the meantime? And I think the good news is there's a lot we can do. We know from research that the majority of how long we live is due to non-genetic factors like lifestyle and environment, and that we have control over this. And a lot of this information we know from studying long-lived societies, like the blue zones that you may have heard about, people that live in Sardinia and Okinawa and Icaria. And some of these stories are absolutely fascinating. Like this woman in Costa Rica that at 100 years old was able to use a machete to clear her lawn and split wood, literally. So we know in these societies, and some of them, people live independently in their 90s. So to me, that's a real hope here, that we can help more of you be independent and for longer, healthier for longer. And that's, really, why I'm here doing this work. I've always wanted that, especially, for people that, we know that don't live as long, that aren't so lucky. I hope that we can change that. We can help more people live healthier for much longer. So again, it's pretty well established that lifestyle interventions can not only extend lifespan, but health span, healthy disease-free period in our lives. And we know that, these lifestyles matter. About half of all cancer deaths in the US are attributed to lifestyle factors like smoking and alcohol. We also know that there are great disparities even in the United States in life expectancy. So the last I checked, if you were to go to Mississippi, life expectancy is about 74 years. Whereas if you went to Hawaii, life expectancy is 81. So one option is, hey, I'm just going to move there. It's not a bad idea. I might like to live in Hawaii. But if you aren't so lucky to live in Hawaii, there are things that you can do right here, right now. And in data that we have at Tally, we've seen that people with the youngest epigenetic ages are people that tend to limit alcohol, have high social satisfaction, low stress levels, and they exercise. So what can you do now? Well, assuming that you limit your alcohol and you don't smoke, I would say my number one thing is get moving. We know from a lot of studies and studying these long-lived societies, they're active. Some of them don't even have gym memberships, but they're walking up and down steps all day. They're going out to get their food. They are very active. This is going to help stave off muscle wasting, sarcopenia, prevent bone loss, make sure that we preserve our cognitive function, improve our cardiovascular health. We know there's many studies that suggest that getting regular exercise is going to help us live longer. There's also clinical research suggesting a Mediterranean diet. And while I know some of you might have specific dietary needs, in general, if you can eat healthier, more plant-based, try if you can, if it is an option for you, try out the Mediterranean diet. There is a lot of really great research on this particular diet. Obviously, avoid ultra-processed food. Tough one, get high quality sleep. We do see, and actually I saw an article this morning in the Lancet, in these super agers, they tend to get high quality sleep. And we have a lot of studies that demonstrate that high quality sleep is so important for being healthy and for living a long life. Although I know it can be challenging. There are a lot of really good natural product sleep aids and methods for winding down, apps like Calm. Highly recommend if you can. And it might be hard if you're a new parent or you have certain jobs, but if you can prioritize that, I would highly recommend. Stress, another challenging one. I work all the time on my life mission, and if I'm not doing this, I'm looking at space, or in the water, scuba diving. So, it's hard, but it's so important to keep our immune systems active and stay healthy to try and minimize the stress when we can. Healthy stress is good. Challenging your mind is good, but you don't want to have the dark, really, really bad stress on your body. Finally, a good one, get social. We do know from long-lived societies that they tend to have a very strong presence in their communities, and are, whether, maybe, you don't get along with your family, but find that community out there to support you as you age. It seems to be really important for longevity and probably overall happiness as well, which can also help with our longevity. Purpose. It's really true that having a purpose, having a will to live can actually help you live longer, whether it's your career, whether it's volunteering, whether it's helping raise your grandchildren, nieces, or nephews. Find something that that makes you want to get up in the morning. Keep your brain active, new challenges. This can help stave off neurodegeneration. I used to study Alzheimer's in the early days of my career, and it really does matter to be able to continually challenge our brains. Peak memory is around age 20. So we all need some help there eventually. And so the more you can do to challenge your brain, the better off you will be. This is a big one. I know Dr. Sinclair and others talk about this a lot, about really just, if you could do, one big thing you could do is just eat less often, limit snacking, limit excessive eating. We see in many long-lived societies like the Okinawans, they tend to eat until they're 80% full. So they're not stuffing themselves all the time. They are, maybe not directly, but inadvertently watching what they eat. They don't have this mentality of excess. So if you can, try to limit excessive eating. And then, of course, we're big proponents of measurements here at Tally. It's really hard to change what you can't measure. So, whether it's the age test that can help you stay on track and see which interventions are working well for you. Also recommend checkups, blood work, trying to keep all those blood biomarkers healthy as well. DNA testing, so you know what your risk factors are. And then I'm also a big fan of wearables. They keep me honest. They keep me accountable. I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, of course I did all of my exercise for this week, but you cannot lie to the Apple Watch or the Whoop or the Aura or whatever you're wearing. I find those really useful. I've also found other wearables and monitors useful, like CGMs. Not for everyone, of course, but if you have a history of high blood sugar or have high blood sugar, these are ways to hold us accountable and keep us honest. And I also recruit friends and families too, like, hey, I'm exercising today. So, make a plan with a friend to go, because otherwise it's easy. Hey, I'm giving a webinar today to cut it out. And then finally, we're also big proponents of supplementing with geroprotectors. And there's no magic pill right now. I still need to do all those other things, but there's a lot of really exciting emerging literature on natural products that can extend lifespan in animal models and health span in animal models and humans. And it's early days. Clinical trials to target aging are still a relatively new thing, but I'm seeing more and more trial registries every day. So, and we're constantly scouring the literature for new exciting molecules out there. But certainly I was really excited to put together Vitality with our team, because it has a lot of the molecules that I think are can be truly impactful and exciting. One of those is calcium alpha ketoglutarate. It supports our mitochondrial health. So that's the powerhouse of our cells, and also methylation and demethylation reactions. In mice, it's been shown to not only extend lifespan, but preserve ovarian function, reduce hair graying, decrease chronic inflammation. In humans, early days, but early research suggests it's safe. It increases exercise performance, wound healing, and in a small retrospective study, early days for that. So we're waiting for more studies to come out, but in a small retrospective study, they demonstrated that it can actually decrease epigenetic age. Then we have fisetin and quercetin, our senolytics, and they're really powerful compounds that we know can help remove these zombie-like senescent cells that tend to accumulate as we age. And they can be a good thing in small amounts, but as we age and we accumulate them, they kind of hang around and they can increase inflammation and kind of inhibit regeneration. So it's good to get rid of those. And then those molecules also do other things as well, like quercetin can increase NAD levels and support immunity. Then we have resveratrol, which can activate our longevity pathways. So there's good stress pathways like that people can get from, again, eating less often, for example, or fasting. This is kind of a mimic of that. It can activate these longevity stress pathways to boost all those longevity genes, as well as it's been demonstrated to many things, but one is to help with insulin sensitivity. And then finally, one of my other favorites is spermidine. This is a really exciting molecule that's been shown to improve cognition in mice and in humans. In mice, it's been shown to extend lifespan, increase ATP levels. And the way this works is it targets autophagy. So what this is it's a cellular recycling program. It gets rid of all that debris and junk in our system. So really big fan of spermidine as well. And of course, we're constantly looking for new things. I'm very lucky to work with a really incredible team here where we're constantly scouring the literature for trials and new data out there. So as I've discussed, there are several things you can do right now to increase your likelihood of living a long and healthy life. And I hope I've also left you with a better understanding of how and why we age. And now I'm ready to take any of your burning questions. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cuellar. Super interesting. Hope you all found that to be helpful. So we're now opening up the floor to questions. So again, I see some of them already in the Q&A box. Thank you. For anybody else, please continue to submit those in the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So let's kick it off. So first question to you, Dr. Cuellar, is who should and should not use an epigenetic age test?
Fantastic question. So who shouldn't use the age test? Well, our test was designed for people 18 or older because it was trained on adults. And so definitely be 18 or older. Other than that, it's for people who want the test, who want to optimize their aging. So it's really for anyone out there that wants to take our test. Certainly there might be times when you might not want to take it, like if you're suffering from an acute illness, like if you have a cold, wait till you get better. Or flu, or something going on where you're not feeling right just that day, something that's very acute, you might want to wait. But it's designed, anyone can take it, even during pregnancy. You might see some changes in your age during pregnancy, but it's perfectly safe to take it even during that time.
Great, thank you. We have a lot of questions here about supplements, so we'll get right to those. First question is around Vitality, which is our daily longevity supplement that we have currently launched. There are going to be additional supplements being launched. I know somebody asked that, so stay tuned on that front. But regards to Vitality, can you talk a little bit about how we recommend taking it? So the 4-pill daily dose, do you recommend spreading it out during the day, taking them all at once with food or without? What is our sort of stance on best way to take that?
Absolutely. That's also an excellent question. So if you're new to supplements, I highly recommend ramping up. You might even want to start with 1 pill a day and see how you do. Like with any vitamin I've tried many, many vitamins, and some of them you need a little adjustment period. So if you're new, first consult with your doctor, say, hey, would this be right for me? Of course, we've designed this for healthy adults in mind, but certainly ask them, but I would ramp up and I would take it with food. Some of these agents are better absorbed with fat. So if you're fasting, you may want to wait for your first meal of the day, whether that's lunch. And if you're like, well, I want to take it earlier in the day, take it with a scoop of, I think David likes to say he takes it with a scoop of yogurt or olive oil. That can help if you're fasting and you still want to take Vitality.
Great. And just staying on the topic of supplements in general, a lot of questions here about NMN.
Oh, okay. That's a big one. Which one do we want to tackle first?
So really what people are asking are, what about NMN? Are we going to have anything with NMN in it, and our thoughts on NMN?
Absolutely. So NMN, I think it's an exciting molecule out there. Unfortunately, the FDA has banned it for sale, so we can't use it, but there are a lot of exciting molecules out there that do very similar things, some of them in Vitality and beyond, where there's a lot of really great research coming out, but it is an exciting molecule. Unfortunately, it's not legal to sell NMN because it was not for any safety reasons or anything like that. There was a pharmaceutical company that registered it as a drug, so it can no longer be sold as a dietary, as a natural product anymore because they registered it as a drug with the FDA. So, but certainly exciting molecule out there for sure.
Yeah, we're very excited about NMN as well. So we're closely monitoring the situation, and if things change, we'll be sure to reach out to the member community about that. Other potential geroprotectors here. What are your thoughts on rapamycin?
Ooh, okay. Rapamycin is definitely very intriguing out there. There's a lot of great data. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more results from clinical trials. And also, I know there are companies that are working on making versions of it that have less side effects. So targeting the mTOR pathway is a really powerful way to potentially increase our longevity and our lifespan. I think there's a lot of literature supporting this in animal models, and they're starting to do clinical trials, but there are side effects for sure. So I know there are people that have it prescribed off label if you have that access, but, certainly I would expect that, the current form, rapamycin can decrease your immunity, lead to mouth sores, but certainly I think it's one to watch, and also watch for ones that have better safety and lower side effect windows. That I know there are several biotech companies out there working on making those as well.
Great. And then another question, I think I've heard you get excited about this one too. What are your thoughts on taurine?
Ooh, that's another one. I was going to state that earlier. We're always scouring the literature for new stuff, and we recently did a journal club on the latest taurine paper. It's fascinating. It's been shown to be safe for many years. I mean, some of you, I drink Red Bull occasionally. I don't know if I should admit that or not, but it has taurine in it. I've always thought the vitamins and taurine are a good thing. The paper is really exciting. I mean, it definitely demonstrates, at least in animal models, that it's targeting most of the hallmarks of aging. And we know that we stop producing taurine, it drops precipitously as we age. Like already I'm in my 40s and it's like way, 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 way low. So I'm really looking forward to seeing additional research on it, but certainly it's one to watch. It's safe. And in humans has also shown benefits so far. So it's really one that I find very exciting.
Great. And then one more here that's somewhat related here. What about metformin?
Also, a lot of really interesting research on metformin. I know there are some people taking it off label, like mTOR. I don't know if that's right for you, but certainly there is a lot of really interesting research on metformin potentially increasing longevity. It certainly does a lot for people that have high blood sugar as well. And so it is one of those that I know there are longevity researchers that take it and are huge proponents of it. Again, like mTOR, I'm not your doctor, so I can't say if it's right for you, but it is one that I find highly interesting and does have the potential to potentially extend lifespan. Although early days, there's been small clinical trials, mostly done with, I think one was done with men. They were older men. So there's a lot more work to be done, but certainly one to watch for sure. And if you take it, you might have that additional benefit. And if you're willing to be a little bit of a guinea pig, you may want to consider it if your doctor says, hey, that could be safe for you.
Great. Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about our test, the Tally Age test. There's a question here that talks about there's several different ways to measure epigenetic age. So why did we choose DNA methylation?
Well, DNA methylation has been the gold standard for, all the epigenetic modifications. There are a number of biomarkers that we can look at, but it has been the gold standard for a while. And it initially started with Dr. Horvath, and some people, we have these epigenetic aging clocks that started with him, and they've really evolved from these simple clocks that were estimators of age to now in our clock, it also correlates with lifestyle factors. So that's really exciting. I mean, of course, while this is one indicator, and we think it is a really powerful indicator, I mean, we also want to make sure you get regular checkups as well and make sure other things are healthy. But we do think that this is right now one of the gold standards in the field for estimating how well you are aging.
And then as it relates to the recommendations that we provide people in the action plans, there is somebody here, and I do believe we have a lot of these folks in our community who score really well on the lifestyle scores. So what recommendations would you give to these people who are, already doing quite well on the lifestyle categories?
Right. So, I would double check, again, like assess, first of all, really like what, how honest you are with yourself. Often we, and try to find other measurement tools as well. Like I mentioned earlier, like incorporating fitness trackers, really tracking your age. We know that there are people that are healthy. Maybe definitely recommend like doing regular checkups. I think I heard a stat from someone on our team the other day that maybe even half of people don't have a general doctor that they see. So make sure that you're healthy, that you're doing all of the things, taking the supplements. I mean, there are some things that we don't completely understand. And also some people with higher lifestyle surveys, if you're implementing new changes, they may take a long time to implement. So you might want to experiment with new things that the action plan is recommending, because often our action plans not just take into account your lifestyle survey, but it also takes into account your DNA methylome. So some people think it's just a lifestyle survey. It's not. It's actually, we're analyzing your DNA methylome. We're comparing you to your peers and making recommendations based on what's, what we think in your DNA methylation could predict what you should be doing, as well as what your peers are doing. So highly recommend checking out the action plans if you haven't already, to prioritize as well.
Awesome. And a related question here is about specific recommendations based on our personal epigenetics. I think that you sort of just addressed that in that, these recommendations are really based on the DNA methylation that is unique to you. So that is, I don't know if you want to expand on that anymore, but, just to clarify, like your recommendations are actually coming from the DNA sample.
Absolutely. Those are coming from your DNA. And then we prioritize, we also take into account your lifestyle survey. So we try, if you say, oh, I already do this, we're not going to recommend, we ideally don't recommend that as well. So it does take into account your lifestyle survey, but based on your DNA methylome. And the more we learn and the more that's out there, these recommendations are also going to start to get more and more specific as well as we go on and we learn more and more.
So I'm going to switch gears to a different category here. There's questions around glucose. Can lowering my blood glucose have a positive effect on my epigenetic age? What's the connection between glucose levels and epigenetic age?
Right.
Or is there?
Yes, I think, yes, there is a connection out there. So we do know that getting your HbA1c levels under control, blood glucose under control, that can help. It really can help you live longer. Not just directly, but also other impacts on your health. So the healthier you are, of course, as you can imagine, the greater your likelihood for living longer. Absolutely. So I know this can be tricky. Definitely a big fan of CGMs. I'm actually wearing one right now. So those can help, but certainly it can help to decrease your epigenetic age if you can become healthier and manage the sugars a bit better.
Yeah, and you mentioned, that you're a big fan of wearables in the presentation earlier, and you're wearing your CGM. So I think it would be helpful maybe if you could just quickly share maybe some of your thoughts on the best tech devices for health tracking, like things like sleep, heart rate, blood sugar, et cetera. Just some quick favorites if you have them.
Yes. I mean, maybe it's laziness. I have the Apple Watch because it incorporates everything. It might not even be the best anymore. I know a lot of people really love the Oura Ring because it's better at measuring your sleep. From what I've heard, I don't have one yet, but I hope to someday. A lot of people are big fans of Whoop. That's another one. Fitbit is the old school one that I started out with, and I liked it because it was more community-based and competitive. So you'd get out there and be like, hey, I didn't get my 10,000 steps for the day. So I really liked Fitbit. CGMs, things that just hold you accountable in terms of apps. Calm is a good one that I've definitely tested out for trying to relax. There's a lot of meditation apps out there if you're trying to get better sleep or just reduce your stress overall. Those are some of my personal favorites out there.
Great. Awesome.
Over-the-counter blood tests too. Like make sure that you're healthy, right? That's also a good thing to check out as well.
Awesome. A question here about protein and mTOR activation. How much is too much protein?
Oh, wow. So we did have a really great article written by some of our talented staff here at Tally on the exact amounts of protein. And it's definitely going to depend on your personal makeup and the phase of life. So certainly while, we recommend certain amounts of protein, and I can send all the literature afterwards, that can increase as we get older. So certainly as we start to develop, as we get older, we begin to lose muscle mass. And in some cases develop, this like sarcopenia, like muscle wasting. And so protein requirements will change as we age. And I can't remember the exact amounts off the top of my head. I'd have to dig out the article, but certainly excessive protein will activate mTOR. So if you're eating one of those very high protein diets, those could potentially lead to excessive activation of mTOR. And certainly we want to reduce the levels of methionine, and other amino acids that can activate this pathway. You want to have amino acid scarcity. So certainly, definitely recommend checking that out. I can definitely share those links at the end of this webinar, but certainly those requirements may change as you age. There are really good guidelines out there for what you can do at certain periods of your life, and then as you get older as well.
Great. Yeah. And for any of you who might have missed the protein email that went out, please feel free to reach out to us and we'd be happy to send that to you again. A somewhat related question about what you eat apart from added sugars. Do you feel that carbohydrates, for instance, in bread, pasta, etc., should be limited?
Great question. I just remembered the protein. It's like 0.8 grams per pound of body weight until you get to like 60, and then it increases. Carbs. Yes, this is a fun one. And I struggle with this myself because a lot of people, it used to be, there's always these fads with diets. This low carb diet is good. This low protein diet is good. I think in general, it's been shown time and time again is that eating a plant-based diet is the best way forward. I'm not saying go full vegan, but like try, the portions of starches, especially those types of carbs are probably the worst in terms of carbohydrate. We all need carbs, right? We need carbs, absolutely. But certainly emphasizing, 75% of your plate should be plant-based, ideally veggies, fruits and veggies. And then, whole grain carbs are really, really much healthier if you're going to eat, pasta and breads, finding, whole grains as much as possible. But certainly the majority of our plate should be veggies according to studies. And, that might be not the thing that you want to prioritize. I mean, it's ultimately individual, of course, and personal. I know people love their meat and they love pasta. I do too. But certainly plant-based has been demonstrated over and over again to have the best effect.
Yeah, guilty is charged here over as well with regard to the carbs. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? So a couple of other questions unrelated to diet. Why are your supplements packaged in separate plastic bags? How about just putting 1 month worth of pills into a bottle, et cetera? So I do think this is a fantastic question. Thank you for submitting it. Lots of companies, including Tally, are focused on reducing carbon footprint and reducing waste. Happy to share that we are making that transition. So please stay tuned for that. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is in the works. And we're really excited about improving our packaging to meet some of these standards that we want to hit as well. I will say that the boxes are recyclable and the current sachets that they're in are compostable. So hopefully that's clarifying. But yes, we are really excited to make that transition soon. Another question here, which I think is a really important one around data privacy. So, there's somebody that asked, should we be concerned that, my DNA is out in the world? Can we come? World and as part of our community. We do not sell the data. We do not share your data with anyone outside of Tally. And even within Tally, we have specific SOPs where only certain that through the Tally age clock. And so it is extremely limited. We don't even share that within the team itself. The partners that we work with, including the lab, they only analyze, they do not then see the rest of the information. So that is all kept here in a very secure environment that is cloud-based and is with a very large provider who you can all probably guess who have their own data privacy standards. So we take this very, very seriously. At any time, you can ask us to send you your data. And of course, I think that we can also delete your data. However, I would say that part of the value of Tally and being able to give you more personalized recommendations and insights is to maintain that longitudinal data. But please rest assured, it is safe and secure.
Absolutely. Second, what Melanie said, we take it very, very seriously here. My DNA is in there as well. We work with a CLIA certified lab and they do not analyze the DNA there. They transfer the data and then delete it. So we have very strict policies on destroying the samples, destroying the data from their end. And again, we don't sell it or share it. And we have pretty strict practices within the company to maintain the privacy of the DNA.
Thank you. Okay, so switching back to some of the data, what % of participants are older than their biological age?
Oh,
Sorry, or older than their chronological age, I think that was meant to say. Yeah.
Yes. Well, currently, I mean, when we first started, it was about evenly split. I mean, that's the way the clock, the way those clocks work is that you have about, on average, about half the people older and younger. It's very early days to talk about how people are doing now, but we are encouraged. We're encouraged by that data. But certainly it started off as about 50 people being older or younger, with a lot of people hovering around their chronological age. And then you have people that have more extreme values. And those people, are really fascinating as well. And some of them have talked with us. So yeah, to understand why.
Yeah, and I think we're excited to continue to have more insights on this front, and additional things that we can share with you all at an aggregate level, because we think it's interesting, but also improving the platform to potentially give you also more individual information and context as well. So that is on our roadmap. But I will say that part of the reason for that distribution looking fairly normal or unsurprising is just the diversity of the database that we created the algorithm upon. So we had over 8,000 people, a very large age range, 18 to 100 years old, pretty equal split of gender at birth, and then over 30% non-white individuals. So I think that that probably is part of the reason that we see that, and it'll be really interesting to see how we can help people lower their biological age over time.
Yes. And thank you to our volunteers. If some of you are here right now in this audience, because having that tremendous data set allowed us to create such a high quality clock.
Absolutely. All right. We do have some more time, so let's keep going through the questions. Okay. What are your, would you be willing to share the percentage of people tested below or higher? So we just sort of said that it was pretty much 50-50 split on the distribution. It looked like a very normal distribution curve. As we get more information on an aggregate basis, again, I think we'll be super happy to publish an additional content article or an insight or a social post. So stay tuned for more insights.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Here's the interesting question. So the tally test reported that I have a higher age, but I am considered as looking much younger. Why?
Oh, wow. Yes, we do see that occasionally. And also the reverse is true too, where, I've definitely had people that say, hey, I'm surprised. I feel like I look old for my age and I'm actually younger. And while, the outside appearance can indicate sometimes what's going on the inside, it's not the ground. I mean, this is why we like these tests, is because we know that they can maybe indicate that, hey, I've always felt good. I've always looked good, but maybe there are things that I can do to slow my internal aging as well, right? I mean, some of us are gifted genetically, even. There are some I know there are a few genetic mutations in certain populations and ethnicities that have better skin. My grandpa, he is Spanish, and I don't know, in his 80s, even, he barely had any, he was lucky. I'm only half Mexican and Spanish, but he was very lucky, always looked young. And a lot of it was just, having good skin. But certainly the age test can indicate that there are maybe some other things that you can work on to slow your aging. And often we see these disparities. And often when we talk to people, they'll report something, whether it's, oh, I had a surgery recently. So major trauma to your body can temporarily accelerate your age, and illnesses, acute illnesses, or even chronic illnesses as well. So there are other things that can accelerate aging, and just natural acceleration of aging that may not completely overlap with your external appearance.
Okay. This is a fun one too. And we actually talk about this a lot internally, but what are your thoughts on the benefits or not benefits of adding cold plunges or sauna to your lifestyle?
I think this is a really interesting topic of research out there right now. I mean, the idea is that it's a healthy stress that can activate, like the heat. Some of you may have seen our post on heat shock proteins. And so the idea here is that it could be activating these longevity stress pathways. Really good clinical research is still forthcoming. One podcast I really like to watch is Rhonda Patrick. She, I think, had a whole entire podcast on sauna use, which was excellent and really digs into all of the current literature out there. I'm a proponent of it, although I know right now it's like I'm still waiting for more and more data out there, but evidence suggests that, especially like sauna use, there's more evidence to suggest that it could potentially activate these stress longevity pathways. So it's early days, but I am, proponent. And if it's healthy for you, you don't have a heart condition and you can go into the sauna or other conditions, you might want to try it out. I think it's if anything, it makes you feel better, and in the best way, maybe helping you live longer. But it's too early to say in terms of clinical trials if it actually helps you live longer. But there are a lot of people around the world, like I think the Swedish use it a lot. So I'm a fan. I think, why not stress your body in good ways? Activate those genes if you can try to do it.
Okay, really good one here for you, and I'm happy to answer this one too. Coffee or tea?
They're both, I mean, I know they fall into two camps. I'm personally a coffee drinker, but I know a lot of people are big proponents of tea, and tea also has a lot of really, especially green tea, has a lot of really excellent compounds. So I do mix in a matcha when I can, but certainly caffeine has been shown. I mean, we do know, we have a colleague on our team, I hope I can say his name, Adib, huge proponent of coffee, really big on coffee, that, there is evidence to suggest that a couple cups of coffee a day or a few cups of coffee a day can actually make a difference. So if you can incorporate more caffeine, whether it's caffeinated tea or caffeinated coffee, again, not everyone can drink caffeine. So I'm not telling you to do it if your doctor says no, or you just can't for some other reason. But if you can, even decaf coffee, I think, has a little bit of an effect, but certainly, I'm more of a coffee drinker, but tea's good too.
I personally am a coffee drinker. I do drink decaf, which might have been left over because I had a baby last year and I went, cold turkey on the caffeine. But so now I do continue to drink decaf. I do matcha in the morning and then green tea throughout the day. All right, I did want to just say one thing to the audience. This is recorded, and there will be a replay available in case you joined late and missed anything, or if you want to watch it again. So that link will be available and sent out in the next member email. So take a look for that, but you will have another chance to write down anything that you may have missed. Okay, back to questions. I thought we would probably get one about this, but what are your thoughts on Brian Johnson's Blueprint protocol?
Yes, I think, like many of you, I'm intrigued. He has tremendous resources. So yeah, there's a lot you can do with $2 million to try. I do commend his commitment. The guy is really doing a lot, like trying everything out there, and he really has a healthy lifestyle. He exercises, he tries to incorporate all the supplements. Yeah, so I would say if you had a lot of resources and you're willing to be a guinea pig, not all of it is proven with science yet. I think he's going for a moonshot, right? He's really, before the data is available, let's try it all. Certainly what we're trying to do here at Tally is make healthy aging accessible here. So we know, most of us don't have the time commitment to just be around all day being measured by machines and, taking every supplement known to man to possibly, slow our aging. So we try to prioritize for you based on evidence and clinical studies is, every day. But, I know a lot of you like to laugh, but I actually think it's kind of, I don't know, there are some aspects of it that I find commendable. It's a lot of time though. Like really he's spending, I think, most of his time trying to live longer. And then you kind of wonder, okay, well, I kind of also want to live. I want to do research. I want to see the world. So there's that aspect. But I think some of the things, the scientific things, he's taking a lot of good supplements. I think he's taking almost everything we have in Vitality. I think he also takes taurine, many supplements. I think it's 60 or so supplements a day. So it's a heavy commitment and a bit experimental. Yeah.
Great. Will telehealth be available internationally? So I'm happy to take that one. So currently we only are in the US. However, we're extremely excited to potentially expand outside of the US. Timing is not clear yet, but we very much want to be able to bring our platform to as many people as possible. And I'm really delighted that we do get a lot of inbound interest from people outside of the US. So we would absolutely be thrilled to be able to do that. So please stay tuned for more information on that, but we are working on expansion. Okay, any plan to update recommendations or the app content? What's on the roadmap? So I'm also happy to take that one. We are really pleased with the app that we've built from the day we launched, which was only a few months ago, but we're already working on a number of improvements that I think that you all will find hopefully really compelling. We want to make the action plans more personalized and give you some more flexibility in your ability to actually put together an action plan that works best for you. So we've heard some feedback that maybe you want to focus on a specific thing, a specific area. So getting more information around why certain recommendations are given to you and some of the research behind that. So that's kind of one big thing that we're really working on improving. The second big thing is giving you more information about yourself. So as you take additional tally age tests, being able to show your historical results and giving you a little bit more insight as to where you are and where you fall along that distribution in our data set, or just some more contextual information to help you understand what this really means for you. And that will go hand in hand with the recommendations. The third, I think, is super interesting, is just more content. So we're really focused on giving you all the latest and cutting edge research. Trinna and her team have Journal Club, but they also read all of the latest papers that come out. They're constantly scouring the literature, like she said, and we want to be able to give you more sound bites around those things, or even access to some of those articles, or just even, how you should think about that. So stay tuned for more content in terms of long form, social posts, et cetera, that we can bring to you to help you learn. And then the last I mentioned at the top of this call, which is this is our first members only webinar, but we will be having additional member events like this. And we're really open to ideas. So if you have any, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at hello@tallyhealth.com. But we definitely want to focus more on how we can engage both with our team and you as our members, but also potentially allowing people to, speak to each other in other ways. So thinking more about community is really top of mind. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. So I'm just going to look here. Here's a good one to end with. Are you planning on adding data integrations for further context, such as blood tests and wearables? So the short answer is yes. And we're, super excited about that. What we really care about here at Tally is science and data. And so we would love to work with other companies, other folks, to bring in as much data as we can to, again, optimize that algorithm through which we're recommending and giving you insights. So the more data, we welcome that. And so we'll be working on some of that. Nothing to announce just yet, but that is part of the roadmap. Okay. Any last thoughts from you, Dr. Cuellar?
No, I mean, it's really just, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy talking about our work here at Tally and the research that we do here. Definitely look, keep a watch out for future webinars. I know my team wants to dive into some other topics as well, like more of the science on our clock, for example, really deep dive there. So very excited to be able to meet with you all and share with you a little bit more about our research. And just thank you all for the excellent questions. I mean, certainly this is a really fun part of my job to be able to spend a tiny bit of my time doing this. So thank you all so much.
Well, great. We are unfortunately out of time. I know we still have a lot more questions from the audience. So again, like I said, if you have time, please feel free to email us at hello@tallyhealth.com, and we'll try to respond to your questions. Also, the link to the replay of this webinar will be available in the next member email. So just look for that link. It'll probably be appended to the bottom of that email. And I know there were a number of research studies, citations, et cetera, that were referenced on today's call. So again, also, if you want those, please feel free to email hello@tallyhealth.com. Just reference the webinar, and we will send over the appropriate articles or relevant links to that. So with that, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate you taking time and spending that with us and submitting all of your questions. We're very excited to have additional events, and we hope to see you all soon.
Thank you so much, everybody.